Part 16. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 151. Chapter 151, Jiawei Mountain. Okay, then, slave, go down first. If you need anything, call me, Gao said warmly. She had to stay down below. If anyone came over and saw the fourth miss lying down and sleeping without any image, what would she do? She deserves the kindness given to her by Miss Fourth. I was dug out of bed by two nuns early in the morning. They sat there all morning and toiled all afternoon. Yuan was tired, so she might as well get enough sleep. With Feng and Yu Heiran outside, she could sit back and relax. After Mrs. Gao stepped back, Yuan fell into a deep sleep. I slept until dark, and then Yuan got up. At this time, Mrs. Gao had already turned on the lamp. When she heard her getting up, she knocked on the door and came in. Fourth miss, the food is brought here by the slave, please eat quickly. At this moment, Mrs. Wu came in with water and put it on the washstand. Yuan then yawned and got out of bed, washed her face, sat down and picked up her chopsticks to eat. Aunt Gao, do you have anything to do this afternoon? Mrs. Gao shook her head and said, only my wife came to see you. When she saw you were sleeping, she went back again. Oh. By the way, fourth miss, Madam asked Auntie G and Auntie Chu to stay in the house, and each of them followed you and Miss Sixth, said Gao. It's okay to stay. Just help her arrange a place to live. Yuan understood what Feng meant. She didn't have anyone who knew etiquette around her, so it was appropriate for the nuns in the palace to stay and teach them both. She did not reject the two nuns, they were quite gentle. Cao has arrived. I have seen Princess Wanking, he said, urging her to knock on the door and come in. Then she knelt on the ground and saluted. Urge Mama to get up quickly. You don't need to do this big ceremony in the future. Yuan stood up and helped her up. I have thanked Princess Wanking. Your words and deeds will be taught by me from now on. I hope Princess Wanking will not blame you if you have any mistakes. He urged the Mama to be respectful and the etiquette was in place. Okay, let me go back and rest first. That old slave, please leave, he urged Grandma to bow out respectfully. Yuan returned to the table and finished her meal. After the meal, Mrs. Wu put away the tableware, and Yuan said to Mrs. Gao, Aunt Gao, please accompany me to Xiafengqi Pavilion. Ms. Feng has been tired for a long day. She has to go and take a look. Logically speaking, she shouldn't be lazy. When the master and servant arrived outside Fengqi Pavilion, Nanny Yang, who was beside Feng, happened to come out. When she saw it was Yuan, she quickly said, Fourth miss, madam, and the two young masters have just gone to bed. What's the matter with you? What's the matter? Yuan heard that Mrs. Feng had already gone to bed. She was very tired today and it was not appropriate for her to disturb her. She said, there's nothing wrong. I just came over to see my mother. I'll come tomorrow. Okay, when the eldest princess wakes up tomorrow, I will tell her, said Nanny Yang. Yuan nodded and took Mrs. Gao back to Ziwen Pavilion. Everyone was tired today, so she didn't look anywhere. She returned to her room, entered the space and started practicing. In the space, after Yuan practiced some practice, she entered the red earth to prepare the elixir. Since she returned to the capital 5 years ago, the red land has increased by 10 acres and has never increased again. Now there are 40 acres of red land, while the black land has increased to 220 acres without knowing it. Now the great Yan Empire is in peace and prosperity, the weather is smooth, the people live and work in peace and contentment, and there is no need for the things in her space. She is still storing a large amount of food. Be prepared for any danger. Except for the spiritual wine produced in her space in the restaurant, she asked the locals Wangzi to supply the rest. When they couldn't supply it, she would take it from the space. Master, We haven't been out for a long time, let's go to Jiaowei Mountain tomorrow, the little snake said when Yuan returned to the wooden house. Jiaowei Mountain, Yuan touched her chin. She looked at the little snake. Did this guy remember the existence of that deep mountain? She also remembered that when they entered Jiaowei Mountain 6 years ago, the little snake would not let her go deeper. You sure? The little snake nodded. Okay, we'll go there tomorrow. She was also curious about what was in there. At present, she has reached the 10th level of Qi training and has yet to find an opponent to compete with. In the past few years, she has not only practiced spells and grappling, she has also practiced swordsmanship. Maybe it's because she doesn't have the talent in this area and hasn't achieved much in the past few years. The next day, Yuan got up and went to Fenki Pavilion without breakfast. In Fenki Pavilion, we can already hear the two little ones chattering. Yuan went upstairs and ran towards Bai Junyan. She hugged her, and he raised his little face and shouted, "Fourth sister, hug me." She pinched his little pink face, picked him up and walked towards Feng's house. "Mother," she called out. "Xiao Sier, haven't you eaten? You can eat by yourself while mother is dressing you." Feng's voice came from next door. Yuan sighed. Her mother was always resentful that she didn't take care of the older ones because of her condition, so she insisted on taking care of the younger ones herself. It was hard work and she really admired her mother for her patience. She put Bai Junyan on the stool and put the multi-grain porridge in front of him. The little guy was not polite and ate it with a spoon. "Fourth sister, you eat too," the little guy said, puffing his cheeks. "Eat, then go for a run with the fourth sister after eating." "Then I'm going to," Yuan just finished saying that Xiaoliu came in with a food box. She put the food box on the table, took out the pastries she made and put them away. The two siblings looked at the food on the plate on the table with 4 eyes and swallowed. They knew it was delicious just by smelling it. The spiritual fruit that Xiaoliu took from her was made into this fruitcake. It was soft and glutinous, and it made me appetizing just looking at it. "Eat, what are you two looking at?" Xiaolu asked. Yuan pointed to the next door. "Oh," Xiaolu also sat down and waited for Feng and Bai Junyi. After a while, the two women came over, and the snack foodie sat on the table, took the fruitcake, and started eating. "Eat, don't wait." Mrs. Feng sat down, picked up the fruitcake and started eating. Yuan was not polite, so she took a piece of fruitcake and ate it. The taste is sweet but not greasy, smooth, with the aroma of spiritual fruit, it is really refreshing. "Xiaolu, your skills are getting better and better, what should you do?" "My mother is reluctant to marry you two sisters off," Feng said jokingly. "Then don't get married." "I don't want to get married anyway," Xiaolu pouted and said. "Fourth sister, where are you?" Xiaoliu asked her. "Me? I have never thought about getting married," she said, but she thought of the imperial edict given by Mujukan and that person. "You two, what are you talking about?" Ms. Feng glared at each other. No one could treat her like an old girl. "Ahem, Mom, I'm going to go to Jiaowei Mountain later." She had better change the topic to avoid discussing it. Ms. Feng frowned. They had not been there since that time 6 years ago. Why did Xiao Xier go there today? End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 152. Chapter 152. Green Python. Xiao Sier, mother will go with you. She was worried about her daughter going alone. No matter how much she said the two of them would take care of her. Yuan shook her head and said, "Mom, no need. There is a little snake named Xiao Jin. Don't worry, it was the little snake who asked to go." "He is sure of it?" Mrs. Feng felt somewhat relieved after hearing that it was the little snake who asked for it. She still knew what the little snake was capable of. Then she nodded and said, "Well, be careful." "When are you going?" Yuan said, "Go after eating." At this time, Bai Junyan heard this and quit, puffing out his cheeks and saying, "Fourth sister doesn't keep her words. She promised to run with me." Yuan touched his head and said, "Okay, okay, fourth sister will run with you. We will not leave until we finish running with you. Then eat quickly." Bai Junyan immediately put down the bowl and chopsticks and came to pull her. "This little guy won't run away after eating, so let's go for a walk with him." Yuan picked him up and walked downstairs. After going downstairs, she led him and walked around the lake twice before starting to run. Outside the city, on Jiawei Mountain, Yuan put the horse into the space and released the little snake Xiaojin. "Little snake, you know the place, lead the way." The little snake made a few noises and scuttled towards the deep mountains. Yuan then used the light body technique to catch up. The light body technique performed at the 10th level of Qi training is like an afterimage, and the speed is extremely fast. Compared with the 3rd and 4th levels of Qi training, it is not at the same level. If I have to make a comparison, it is almost the speed of an ordinary express train and the speed of an airplane. "Ga," Yuan braked suddenly because the little snake floated in front of her and stopped and did not continue flying. "What's wrong, little snake, what's going on?" "Hiss, master, don't speak," the little snake sent a message to her. Yuan also released her spiritual consciousness. She can now move 6 feet away. Look at the little snake being so careful. Did she find something dangerous or something precious? Everything within 6 feet was clearly imprinted in her mind, but unfortunately she didn't find anything after reading it. She could only wait. After a while, the little snake set off again, but this time it was much slower and more alert. "Xiaojin, did the little snake find anything dangerous?" Yuan sent a message to Xiaojin. "I don't know, master, I don't know what it is doing." "Master, be careful, we are almost there at this time," the little snake sent a message. "Are we coming?" At this time, they were already deep into the deepest part of Jiawei Mountain. When she arrived here, Yuan suddenly felt that the aura here was rich. What kind of treasure is there, Yuan thought to herself. If someone was here, they would have found it. This little snake is dishonest, go back and beat him up. When they came to a cliff, the little snake stopped. The two snakes suddenly went on the defensive, protecting Yuan in the middle. "Hiss, hiss," a loud hiss suddenly, obviously with a warning. One person and two snakes did not move. Immediately afterwards, there was another rustling sound, and in Yuan's consciousness, a green python as thick as 2 buckets swam toward them with its head held high. The speed was the same as that of small snakes. In other words, the strength of this green python must be similar to theirs, otherwise why would these two be so cautious? "Master, you'd better enter the space, this green python is extremely poisonous," the little snake said to her. Yuan stood still. She sent a message to them so that they didn't need to worry about her and entered the space in the blink of an eye. The green python stopped 5 feet away from the little snake. It lifted the giant and looked at the two little ones, the little snake and Xiaojian, with disdain, as if it was not enough for it to strike. Suddenly, the two little ones recovered their bodies at the same time and spread out their own breath. "Hiss, hiss," the green python smelled the breath of the little snake, and it trembled in horror. "Hiss, it made a mistake." Suddenly it hissed loudly. The sound of rustling sounded again, and in an instant countless venomous snakes swarmed here, surrounding them. Yuan's whole body felt numb after seeing it. "Oh my mother, there must be too many venomous snakes. Master, I'll leave the little ones to you. We'll deal with the big guy and prepare to attack." As soon as the little snake finished speaking, he and Xiaojin rushed towards the green python. Yuan had no choice but to put a diamond shield on her body and summon a flying sword. She also swung her sword and rushed towards the snakes. Shua shua shua, although her sword skills are poor, Her close-range attack is strong, and she is in a group of snakes. As long as she swings her sword, she will cut off several snakes. At the same time, she also throws out fireballs and insect repellent powder. The fireball adhered to the poisonous snake and immediately crackled and burned non-stop. After a while, a layer of snakes spread around Yuan. Fortunately, although these snakes live in places with spiritual energy, none of them have evolved into monsters. At most, they are much more venomous and ferocious than ordinary snakes, so they do not pose a threat to her. She fought for a long time and finally cleaned up all the poisonous snakes. She ducked into the space, recovered and came out again. When they came out, the two were still fighting against the green python, but now the green python was in a very bad condition. The skin and flesh on its body were flying, and it was covered in red and green colors. It looked quite scary. Yuan retreated and watched from a distance. The situation of the two is not much better. There are not many good things about them, and they are not much better than the green boa. This green python is not weak. No wonder the little snake didn't let her come before. Let alone the two of them, the green python has not been defeated yet. If she comes with little snake, she will only lose. Suddenly, the little snake suddenly jumped up and bit the green python about 7 inches away. Xiaojin flicked his tail towards the green python's head. The green python didn't care about its head and tail, so it had no choice but to jump with all its strength. It was just that it was too late. At this time, the little snake had already bitten the green python 7 inches away. No matter how hard the green python shook it, it could not get rid of it. Xiaojin saw that the little snake had succeeded, so he swung his tail and hit the green python on the head. With a bang sound, the green python was slapped hard by Xiaojin's ear. It shook its head and seemed to have fainted. Xiaojin immediately made up for it. Hiss, hiss, the green python hissed in pain. But after he got 2 of them, he attacked the green python even more ferociously, attacking wherever he could. An hour later, the green python finally lowered his head unwillingly. The little snake is still biting the green python for 7 inches. Master, hurry up and cut off the python's head, Xiaojin hurriedly sent a message to her. Oh, Yuan summoned the flying sword, leaped to the side of the green python in a few steps, and slashed down with the flying sword. With a clang sound, Yuan's flying sword seemed to be hitting metal, and the flying sword broke. Nima, what the is this? Yuan was speechless and looked at the little snake. The little snake then let go of the green python, and it flew over, with a powerful flying sword floating out of its body. Master, when using this flying sword, be careful not to drain all the spiritual power from your body. Yuan rolled her eyes at it. At this time, it didn't forget to tease her. She held the sword in her hand. Is it a spiritual weapon? When it comes to foundation building, you can use spiritual weapons. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 153. Chapter 153, Millennium Elixir. She glanced at the green python lying on the ground for a few times. With a wave of her hand, the green python and the other 2 entered the space. Who said she was going to chop off the snake's head? When she entered her space, even a dragon would have to be coiled, let alone a green python. Yuan also entered the space. She used her sword to draw on the green python to see where to skin it. This is the monster beast of the 2 demons. The meat is very delicious. She has never eaten monster meat before. It is recorded on the jade slip that this monster meat is rich in spiritual power and is most loved by monks. The monks eat foods containing spiritual power, the fewer impurities in their bodies, and the faster they practice. Master, let's recover for a while, there are still good things to collect outside, the little snake sent a message to her. Yuan glanced at the little snake. Sure enough, there was a treasure here. I haven't said what the little snake is yet, so I'm afraid it's not simple. It must be the one protected by the green python. Forget it, she won't fight with them. The two of them managed to kill the green python, so they should get the treasure. She didn't suffer at all. Such a big guy could feed their family for a long time. After the two recovered, Yuan had already peeled off the skin of the green python. Of course, after she broke the skin of the green python, she asked Sanzu to skin it. 3 pillars has been in her space for a long time, and her strength has become much stronger. It is quite easy to peel off a snake's skin. The master and the servant came out of the space, and the little snake flew straight into a cave under the cliff. Yuan and Xiaojin followed. As soon as they entered the cave, a fishy smell came. She turned off her sense of smell and followed. This beast is a beast, and it can be treated so stinky. This is obviously the green python's nest. The master and the servant went straight into the cave. The cave was strange, winding, and went straight into the ground. It's just that the further down you go, the richer the aura becomes. Yuan was thinking that she had always wanted to find a place with strong spiritual energy to stay for a long time. The further down she went, the more suitable this place seemed to her. Although she has space and does not need a place with strong spiritual energy, there are so many people in her family, as well as her disciples, the 12 disciples with spiritual roots, and the rest. With so many people, we need a large place to accommodate them. This place is close to the capital, so it is indeed a good place. Master, here we are, the little snake stopped. Yuan looked around and saw that this was an underground cave. There were countless stalagmite-like things hanging upside down from the top. Water dripped from the top from time to time, and the bottom became a pool. In that pool, in the clear water, an emerald green plant grew in the middle, filled with spiritual energy. The little snake has flown over and is taking a deep breath next to it. Xiaojin swallowed his saliva and said, Master, that is a 1,000-year-old elixir. Yu Qingzi, if Master can refine the 3rd level elixir and refine it into a 3rd level spiritual feeding elixir, I can be promoted to a 3rd level spiritual beast, it can be restored to the 3rd level divine beast. Hiss, she couldn't refine the 3rd level elixir even at the 2nd level, so she still had to refine the 3rd level elixir. That was something that only a cultivator at the golden elixir stage could refine. By the time she reached the 3rd level of practice, the daylilies were already cold. Yuan frowned. She looked at the 2 snakes. Is there any other way? Little snake, if you eat this elixir directly, can you advance? Yuan asked. The little snake flew back and stopped next to her and said, I don't know, I haven't tried it, but if I eat it, I can almost return to level 3. It looked at Xiaojin with a sad look in its eyes. In fact, it hoped that Xiaojin would be fine after eating it. Can advance. Xiaojin is different from it, it is recovery, while Xiaojin is promoted through breaking through the realm, and may not be promoted. Xiaojin was not disappointed, and said to the little snake, then just eat it, there is no accident. If I eat it, I may not be promoted. Instead of trying, it is better for you, little snake, to eat it without wasting it. 1,000-year elixir, I'm afraid this is the only one on this continent. Even Yuan's space doesn't have a 1,000-year elixir. There are quite a few ordinary 1,000-year-old Ganoderma lucidum, but those common medicinal materials won't have much effect on the monks. The little snake looked at Yuan with a troubled expression. Yuan thought for a while, and she also felt that Xiaojin was right. After all, the 1,000-year elixir was too rare and they couldn't afford to gamble. It can be restored one by one. If there are 2 plants, then there is definitely no problem, let Xiaojin eat them. Are you going to eat now? Yuan asked. The little snake shook his head. What's wrong? The little snake said, "Master, this elixir will not mature for a few days." "Oh, I got it. If it matures, there will be no share for them, and it won't be the green python that eats it." No wonder the little snake came here at this time. This monster who has lived for who knows how long has a good brain, but he is such a thief. Let people look at it for so long and let it pick peaches. This green python may die without blinking its eyes. Oh, poor green python, Yuan gave it some wax in her heart. "Can I move this elixir to space?" Yuan wanted to ask, waiting a few days. What if another person comes to grab the elixir? After hearing this, the little snake flew over and circled around the elixir in a large circle before returning. It nodded to Yuan. "It's okay, master. Its roots are not deep, but it must have the same environment in the space. Let it grow." "Oh, isn't this easy? Just move the mud and water here into the space." She has been thinking about the roots of the elixir. After eating this elixir, little snake Xiaojin can advance. Then why can't she grow it in space? Maybe it will grow faster in space. She just let the elixir grow in the space for 1,000 or 800 years. Isn't that okay? I wonder if she will be able to use it in the future. The master and the servant did it as soon as they were told. In a short time, Yuan moved the elixir to the red soil. Sure enough, as she expected, as soon as she entered, the elixir began to take root, and soon it was as vibrant as outside, and even more energetic than outside. Yuan was happy. She stayed by the elixir, waiting for it to mature. If there were seeds, she would be even happier. On the 5th day of the space, the spiritual energy around Yukingza suddenly surged for a while. Suddenly, another bud appeared at the top, and then slowly opened. When it was fully opened, the petals fell off, and a dozen small seeds formed in the middle. Yuan felt happy when she saw it. She did not rush to do it, but carefully removed the small seeds first. After planting it next to it, she broke off the Yukingza from the root, put it in a jade box, and put it out on the black soil. "Master, are you mature?" The little snake saw her coming out and flew in front of her. Yuan opened the jade box, and a green elixir plant was lying in the jade box. The fragrance of the medicine immediately hit her nostrils. The little snake rolled up the jade box and flew away, and Xiaojin followed. Yuan shook her head. "Who said that only humans have feelings? This monster also has feelings." From the beginning, Xiaojin has never been greedy for the 1,000-year-old elixir. Although it is usually a bit strong, in this matter, it can be seen that Xiaojin is an affectionate snake. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 154. Chapter 154. A monk appears in the capital. The little snake went to retreat, and Xiaojin protected it. Yuan came out of the space, and she had to clean up the place. She wants to dig out several more stone caves in this cave to use as training rooms. This cave should be on the spiritual line. Without the Yukingza to absorb the spiritual energy in the cave becomes more and more intense. The vines climbing the stone walls are becoming more and more vibrant. Generally, there are legendary spiritual stones on the spiritual veins below. Yuan has never seen a spiritual stone in her long practice, but she has no intention of digging up the spiritual stones here. Digging a stone cave is still very easy for her now. She held the flying sword and dug 3 times, 5 times, and 2 times. By the time she dug a circle around the cave, 3 days had passed. Yuan sheathed her sword. She looked at the 10 small caves with satisfaction. The small caves carved out by the sword were smooth and flat, just like stone houses. The rooms were not big, and there was enough room for a bed. With tables, chairs, and benches, this is completely enough. Then Yuan leveled the floor of the entire cave. She did not touch the pool in the middle. The water in it was full of spiritual energy and was completely drinkable. At that time, the people here will not have a problem with drinking water, and it will still be a rare spiritual water in the world. Fortunately, the green python knew that it was poisonous and did not harm the water here. She stood at the entrance to the cave again, looking at the cave below. The spiritual energy in the cave was spreading out of the cave. Yuan thought that she had to arrange for someone to come over as soon as possible. If the monks found such a place, they would definitely fight for it to pieces. It's a pity that she doesn't know how to use a formation. Otherwise, she could set up a formation to hide and prevent the spiritual energy from leaking out. Sigh, she also has a headache. There are almost no cultivation resources in this continent. Where are the materials for setting up formations? In the past few years, she could clearly feel that the spiritual energy in the air was almost gone. Only a few places like this on the spiritual vein still had spiritual energy. Even the spiritual energy in her back garden has faded by half, and is no longer enough to support their family's cultivation. A few days later, Yuan returned to the capital. After entering the city, she dismounted and led the horse away. She came to the door of Xing Chen restaurant and looked inside. It was already full. She only paused at the door, then led the horse and walked home. Suddenly, two people appeared in her consciousness. For no other reason than that, these two people were monks. One was at the 6th level of Qi training, and the other was at the 7th level. They were walking in the same direction as her. Towards Dongcheng. Yuan slowed down and quietly fell behind them. She wanted to know what the two of them were doing. She has lived in the capital for several years, and she is extremely familiar with all the streets and alleys in the capital. I have never seen any monks at all, let alone such monks in the Qi training period. The two of them looked around as they walked, like ordinary people. However, they shook their heads or nodded from time to time. Yuan knew that they must be communicating through sound transmission. The two of them walked all the way to the East City and arrived at the entrance of Yu Mansion. After standing there for a while, they walked downstairs. This street is straight, with residents on both sides, making it difficult to hide. Yuan waited for them to disappear from her consciousness before quickly entering Yu Mansion. After Yuan handed the horse over to the servant, when she arrived at Fengqi Pavilion, there was no one in the pavilion. She knew that Feng should be at Prince Zhan's mansion now. She returned to Ziwan Pavilion, where Mrs. Gao and Mrs. Wu were being taught by Grandma Urgent. Seeing that she was coming back, they all stepped forward and bowed to her. "Fourth Miss, Madam has gone to the palace." Madam told her that if Fourth Miss comes back and wants to find her, she should go to the palace to look for her, Gao said. Yuan nodded and walked to the back garden. There was no one here today. She sat down. She didn't want to go into the palace yet. She wanted to find those two people at night. She remembered their breaths. She was worried that those two people were people who had been destroyed. She didn't know if they came here to find their organization. She remembered Yu San saying that people from the destruction organization were lurking in various groups of people, and there were also court officials who were members of their organization. The Great Yan Empire is not immune. In these years, all they have caught are small fish and shrimps, and they have never caught a real big fish. While she was thinking, Mrs. Gao came in. When she saw Yuan sitting with her eyes closed, she stepped back. After a while, she came again. Yuan opened her eyes. Mrs. Gao saw her opening her eyes and said, "Fourth Miss, General Mu is waiting outside. He said he has something to do with you, so Fourth Miss must see him." She stood up and said, "Let's go." When Yuan came to the living room, Mu Jukan saw her. He stood up and cupped his hands to her and said, "Miss Yu, I have the temerity to interrupt." "It's okay, please take a seat." She waved her servants to leave. Mu Jukan coming to her at this time must have something to do with the two monks from before. Mu Jukan felt disappointed when he saw that she was very indifferent to him, and his monster-like face looked even colder. Yuan poured tea for him and her. She took a sip and asked, "If there is something wrong with General Mu, please tell me." Mujukan sighed in his heart and said, "Miss Yu, when I was patrolling the city today, I actually found two monks coming towards the east city. Are you here to borrow a little snake?" Mujukan nodded. "The little snake is in seclusion and comes to me at night." As expected, it was for the sake of those two monks. Mujukan's cultivation talent was the same as others, and he was a monster. Now he was at the 11th level of Qi training, which was higher than her. He found that the two monks were normal. Because of his high level of cultivation, the emperor gave him the important task of protecting the imperial city. Once she teased the supreme emperor and said, she gave her family all the most important positions in the Dian Empire, even Mujukan. "Are you not afraid of usurping his world one day?" The supreme emperor laughed for a long time and said, "Ha ha ha, I wish I could. Anyway, you also have the blood of the Feng family. If you change your surname to Feng, it will be fine without losing the Feng family. I will take your cousin to practice, and you will be punished by the court every day. I'm so tired of this shit." Yuan was choked to death. Mujukan glanced at her a few times, stood up, said hello, and left. Yuan touched her nose. To be honest, she was always worried about Mujukan's actions. She wanted to cool him down first. If he couldn't bear it and turned around and married someone else, she wouldn't regret it at all. In fact, the imperial edict has not been announced at all. It is not up to her to decide whether it is effective or not. Now it is in her hands. If she is not willing, she can tear it up. Is her uncle still pursuing her? Mujukan languidly returned to the house and met his mother sending the two of them out. "Brother Chen, you are back." One of the two people facing him, a girl of about 16 years old, ran up to him, smiled sweetly at him, and tried to hold his arm. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 155. Chapter 155 Mew Mew's Enlightenment. The girl held up her arms and asked with a pout, "What's the matter with Brother Chen?" Mujukan frowned. He took a step back and said calmly, "Cousin Ning, walk slowly." Facing the beautiful woman who looked similar to him, he said, "Chen'er is back. I just have something to do today. My aunt will bring your cousin over to play another day. Let's go back first." Mujukan nodded, and said gently, "Auntie, go slowly, Chen'er will come back first." The beautiful woman Mulian nodded, pulled her obsessed daughter and walked out. She shook her head and sighed. Her daughter had liked her cousin since she was a child, but her nephew had no interest in her daughter at all. It's really nerve-wracking. The mother and daughter got on the carriage. The girl Ninger pouted and twisted her handkerchief hard. She asked Mulian aggrievedly, "Mom, why do you think my cousin is so cold to me? What's wrong with me? Can't I change?" Mulian looked at her daughter. She was accustomed to her self-righteous, arrogant, and domineering temperament. She sighed. It seemed that she had to find a family for her to marry. When she met Yu Heiran, Yu Hao, and Yu Haoshan brothers in Yu Mansion that day, she was astonished at that time. Today she came here just to ask her second sister-in-law to ask if the three brothers were engaged. She wanted to choose one of them to be her son-in-law. Mulian nodded her forehead and said, Your temper needs to be changed. You like your cousin, and you can't ask others to like you. Can I find you someone who is no worse than your cousin?" Ninger opened her eyes wide and nodded in understanding. Mu Mansion. As soon as Mujukan returned to his bedroom, he lay listlessly on the bed, staring at the ceiling, and his mind was filled with Yuan. Button, there was a knock on the door. He stood up, straightened his robes, and then opened the door. "Mother." Mrs. Mu entered the room. She pulled Mujukan to sit down. She stared at him for a long time. "Mother, why are you looking at your son like this? What's wrong with you?" Mujukin didn't understand what was wrong with her mother, and it made him feel uncomfortable all over. Mrs. Mu shook her head and said, "There's nothing wrong with you." "What's wrong with you, son? Can you tell me?" No, she still doesn't know what her son is like. From the day he came back from Yufu, his son has been listless all day long, and it is even worse today. Mujukin smiled bitterly. He could really talk to his mother about this matter. After all, he didn't understand the thoughts of his daughter's family, let alone how to please girls. In front of other girls, he is calm, even ruthless. But now when facing Yuan, he didn't know how to face it in front of her and was at a loss. There is no confidence at all. He liked her from the bottom of his heart, wanted to be close to her, and wanted to be with her every day, so he practiced hard so that one day he could reach the point where he could protect her. Mrs. Mu didn't say anything. She was waiting for her son to speak. If he doesn't speak, it's useless for you to ask. After a long while, Mujukin gave an overview of the matter. Mrs. Mu took a breath after hearing this. She never expected that her son would like the eldest princess's daughter, that expressive girl. It's not that she thinks her son is not good enough and doesn't deserve to like her. On the contrary, she knew how good her son was, but the threshold of the eldest princess's family was probably not low. His own son is beheading him first and then showing off, so how can the most beautiful girl in the world not be angry? Generally, girls like this are very proud and have strong self-esteem. How can she tolerate others trampling on her self-esteem? Alas, her son made the wrong move. Mrs. Mu patted his head and said in an angry tone, "Oh, son, you like her. Just like you said before, just wait until she grows up. Why are you asking for an imperial edict? Someone like her girls have the strongest self-esteem. If you do this without her consent, it will make her resent you. If you have a chance to get along with her in the future, don't make wishful thinking, otherwise you will be like this. It's hard to have grandchildren in your lifetime." Mrs. Mu doesn't understand that her son refuses to come to ask for marriage. He is a 21-year-old man, and other people's grandsons are already making soy sauce. Her daughter-in-law is still looking at flowers in the fog. She was so anxious that she got angry, but her son was still hot. Mujukin suddenly realized after hearing this. No wonder, Yuan talked to him normally before, but now when he saw her, her expression was worse than that of a stranger. Had I known that he was asking for a woolen yarn, he was worried that others would beat him to it, so he took this action. Thinking about it now, looking at the entire Great Yan Empire, how many people can catch her eye? She is a monk and it is impossible for her to find a common man to get married. His brain was kicked by a donkey, so why worry? Mujukin felt very regretful. He had to find a chance to explain this matter to her clearly. Mrs. Mu saw that her son was enlightened, so she said nothing more. Her son was smart, so she could just stop. At this time, she remembered what her sister-in-law said, and she was hesitant. She didn't know how to ask about this matter. Her son and the fourth lady were both in this situation, and they hadn't even changed their horoscopes yet, so after thinking about it, she decided to forget it. How could it be that the eldest princess's child was raised by a woman who was unruly, willful, arrogant, and domineering but still ignorant? The person doesn't look very good, but he thinks he is very beautiful. Mrs. Mu finally said nothing and left her son's house. When night came, Yuan called Xiao Jin out and waited at the door of Yu Mansion. At this moment, a tall figure flashed, and Mujukin appeared in front of her dressed in black. "Miss Yu, have you been waiting for a long time?" "No, let's go," Yuan said, letting Xiao Jin get bigger. Xiao Jin immediately enlarged her body, she jumped on it, and Mujukin sat on it immediately. After Xiao Jin waited for the two of them to sit down, he flew up into the sky and flew slowly in the air. Mujukan and Yuan released their spiritual consciousness and searched inch by inch. After searching for a whole night, the two of them were already exhausted and found nothing. There was no trace of them in the capital. Xiaojin put the two of them down, and Yuan said, "You go back and rest first." Mujukan nodded. He had been searching with his consciousness all night. Now he was very tired and had to go back to rest quickly. "You should have a good rest, then I'll go back." Mujukan reluctantly left. Several times, he wanted to hold Yuan in his arms. Yuan went back to Zawin Pavilion, closed the doors and windows, slipped into the space, fell on the bed, and fell asleep. No matter how strong your spiritual consciousness is, it cannot be used for a whole night. Sleeping is the best way to restore consciousness. Yuan slept for 3 days and 3 nights before waking up. She sat on the bed, wondering where the two people had gone. Did they leave the city so soon? She was looking for nothing after leaving the city. She looked at the place where the little snake was retreating, wondering if it had recovered. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 156. Chapter 156 Versus. Yuan came out of the bedroom and walked towards the place where the little snake was retreating. This guy's cultivation has always been based on the elixirs in the ground. Sure enough, the little snake was lying on a firework with large leaves, and its small body was breathing evenly. "Master," Xiaojin saw her coming. "How about the little snake? It's still consolidating." "You mean it was successfully restored?" Xiaojin nodded. "Yes, Master." There was joy in its voice. "That's good, Xiaojin. You go back to Huayang Mansion, take Shitu, Wusheng, Xiner, and the 12 children and put them in the elixir cave in Jiaowei Mountain, and take Yu Yi by the way." "They all come?" Yuan asked Xiaojin to pick up all the people in Banyu Villa, leaving only one person to look after the village. Xiaojin took the order and left. Yuan left the space, left Yu Mansion and ran straight to Jiaowei Mountain. She had a feeling that the two people were not far away. Just when she was instructing Xiaojin to bring the people to Jiaowei Mountain, she suddenly thought that the two people might have gone to Jiaowei Mountain. Monks like to stay in places with spiritual energy. They paused in front of Yufu yesterday, probably because they sensed the difference in her home. And when you go out of the city gate, you can go to Jiaowei Mountain. The aura on the mountain is better than that in the city. Yuan quickly came to the cave. She checked with her consciousness and found that there were fresh footprints entering the cave directly. She waved her hand, summoned the flying sword, and cautiously entered the cave. Yuan was very familiar with this cave. Not only had she leveled the ground inside the cave, but she had also leveled the winding passage. When she almost arrived at the underground cave, there were indeed two people talking in her consciousness. The person on the 6th level of Qi training urged, "Hey, Wang Lu, let's go. After practicing here all night, it's time to leave. This place looks like the owner's territory. We don't know their cultivation. Because, if someone higher than us comes back and sees us here, we won't have anywhere to run." Wang Lu, who was at the 7th level of Qi training, took a deep breath, opened his eyes, and said displeasedly, "Noisy, noisy, 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 noisy all the way, annoying to death. Why do you come out if you are afraid of death? It looks like something new here. How could a person with a high level of cultivation find this place? He is as timid as a mouse." People at the 6th level of Qi training lowered their heads, looked around from time to time, and used their spiritual consciousness to check. Yuan listened to their conversation. Although they didn't say much, She was sure that these two people must be the ones who were destroyed and came with a mission. These two fat sheep must be caught. With her current cultivation level, there is no problem in catching these two people. Unlike the monk who chased her in Anking Mansion, she had no cultivation level at that time. So, Yuan walked down with flying sword in hand. Who is it? The two men stood up at the same time, defending themselves. He, who am I in my land? Who are you? Why are you in my cave? When the two of them saw that the other's cultivation level was much higher than theirs, they immediately lowered their posture. The man on the 6th level of Qi training stood with his legs shaking, but Wang Lu was very calm. He said respectfully, "Fellow Taoist, we were just passing by. Seeing that there was no one here, we came in to rest for the night. We will leave now." "Excuse me." He cupped his fists at Yuan, then pulled the person on the 6th level of Qi training to leave. Yuan said nothing and stood at the exit, weighing the flying sword in her hand. When the two of them saw that Yuan did not respond and refused to let them leave, Wang Lu boldly asked, "What do you mean, fellow Taoist?" Yuan walked down slowly, and when she came to the front of the two of them, they took a few steps back. "What do you mean? You haven't told me who you are. Fellow Taoist, you want to know who we are?" "I advise you not to know," Wang Lu said without fear, as if he was doing a great job. "Ft," Yuan smiled. She had never seen a monk with a low level of cultivation have such courage in front of a person with a high level of cultivation. To be honest, if it were hers, she would have ruined his cultivation level long ago. The words and deeds of this kind of person immediately betray who you are. If you don't say it now, you won't have the chance to say it in the future. After Yuan finished speaking, she suddenly waved her hand towards the two of them. Plop, plop, the sound of ice piercing the body. The two men groaned and ran away immediately. Yuan held the flying sword and chased after him. With a few sounds, the flying sword caught up with the person on the 6th level of Qi training. Suddenly, the 6th level Qi practitioner slapped his leg, and a bright light flashed on his leg. His speed increased several times, and he flew through the cave, but the flying sword could not catch up with him. Magic talisman, Yuan thought silently in her heart. She has it herself, but she has never used it. There is a little snake and a small gold to move around, and the divine talisman has always been placed in the space. She stopped chasing him and let him run away. A magic talisman was only half a stick of incense, and she guarded the entrance to the cave. When Wang Lu saw Yuan stop, he took out the healing elixir from his storage bag and prepared to take one. And countless ice spikes attacked him. He had no time to swallow them, so he quickly dodged. Finally, the magic talisman of the 6th level Qi practitioner failed, and he stopped, panting and watching her carefully. There was no movement between the two of them. Yuan knew that they were transmitting messages. She was just on guard. Hoo. Suddenly, several talismans and several fireballs flew towards Yuan. She had been prepared for it, and with a flash of her body, she was far away. Bang bang bang, several explosions immediately sounded where she stood. Those fireballs had little power, and they exploded with the fireball talisman in 2 clicks. Fireball talisman, these two people are rich. You have it, and so does she. Yuan flipped her hand, and several talismans appeared in her hand. She raised her hand, and the talismans flew towards the two of them. Boom, 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 these explosions were more harmful than the two of them had ever experienced, and even the training room she dug next to them was blown up. Ah, 2 screams came at the same time. Things produced in the world of immortality have been kept in her space for so long. It has always been in the spiritual energy, and the spiritual power on the talisman has not been lost at all, not to mention that it is still a bit stronger. When the gunpowder smoke cleared, there was a pile of rotten rocks on the ground. The two people in the middle of the pile, the one who was on the 6th level of Qi training, were dead. Wang Lu only had one breath left, and he was groaning in the pile of rocks. Yuan stepped forward and put the two of them into the space together with the pile of rocks. She looked at the devastated cave. Even the stalagmites on the top had been blown up in large chunks. It was a pity. Not to mention that it would take her time to clean it up. A lot of the spiritual water in the pool had dried up. Yuan scolded Yuan, "What are these two terrible things doing here?" She quickly cleaned up the place, dug more into the destroyed training room, and then repaired it. Looking at the cave, Yuan took a deep breath and stepped into the space. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 157. Chapter 157 The Forces of Destruction. She promised not to chop them into pieces. In the space, Yuan asked Sanzu to search out the belongings of the two people. Sanzu doesn't mind, it's his job to do this kind of thing anyway. After a while, Sanzu placed the collected things in front of Yuan. "Miss, can I move these stones to my place?" Sanzu asked, looking at the hard stones of different sizes. Of course, in her space, it doesn't matter if she makes 3 pillars or flowers. She returned to the wooden house with their storage bags and poured out all the contents. "Hey, these two people are quite rich." Yuan cleared out a stack of banknotes and several boxes of real gold and silver. "There are only a few talismans, and there are 7 bright white square stones about the size of 2 fingers. She picked it up and put it in her hand. It was filled with rich spiritual energy. Needless to say, this was the legendary spiritual stone. She immediately held the spirit stone in her hand to experience what it felt like to practice with it. She started to run the technique, and at this time, the strands of spiritual power entered her body along with the technique. The pure and strong spiritual power made her body just scream. With less than half a stick of incense, the spiritual power in the spirit stone has been exhausted. Yuan sighed. Sure enough, the cultivation level increased quickly by using spiritual stones. Unlike the mixed spiritual energy in the air, it can be absorbed directly without refining. It's just that the number of these spiritual stones is too small. It's really a luxury to use them for cultivation. She kept the remaining pieces and then cleared the pile. She put the clothes inside that she had worn, and would later clear out the unwanted items and burn them with the body. She turned out a small box with a lock on it. This ordinary lock, she twisted it hard and it fell off. She opened the box and found several pieces of paper lying inside. She picked it up and looked at it, but she didn't know what it was written on. She knew every word, but when put together, she couldn't understand what it meant. This should be unique to their organization of destruction. Even if she couldn't understand it, she left it alone. Other things are of little value. A single skill is far inferior to hers. She keeps what is useful and puts together what is not. At this time, she walked to Wang Lu, who was much better at this time. He looked at Yuan approaching him with fear. "Are you the one who was destroyed?" Yuan asked straight to the point. Wang Lu opened his mouth, and finally nodded. He said, "Do you know about destruction?" "Yeah," Yuan nodded. Wang Lu looked at her strangely. "Then you are still going to kill us?" Yuan nodded again. "Aren't you afraid of our leader's revenge? Retaliation? Your destruction is very powerful, is it amazing? I have almost wiped out all the people who destroyed the Great Yan Empire. Why don't you come to take revenge?" Yuan said while looking at Wang Lu to see what he said. There is no value. Not to mention, with her methods, she still believed that Wang Lu would definitely say it. "TCH, you are really overestimating your capabilities. The leader of our purple group does not want to attack mortals, otherwise your Great Yan Empire would have died a long time ago. With your little cultivation, you can pull it out. Didn't all the people we met yesterday? Are you doing well?" Wang Lu sneered at her disdainfully. "Aren't you afraid that I will kill them?" "Kill your leader? Wang Lu said nonchalantly, just kill her, it won't be of much use keeping her anyway. Our leader, you won't be able to kill her even if you practice for decades. This man is not very smart, but what he said is quite useful. According to him, their leader should be a monk in the foundation building period. Yuan patted his face with a flying sword and said to him condescendingly, "What's the big deal? My spiritual pet is the second level of Dzogchen. If I don't believe it anymore, I can't kill him. As for you, I want to kill you, it's not a matter of minutes, see what you can do." Sure enough, Wang Liu's expression froze. He had never thought that he had a spiritual pet. "But tell me everything you know about the destruction, and maybe you will be spared." Wang Lu looked at her a little disbelievingly, but there was no disdain as before. "It's up to you whether you want to say it or not. If you don't say it now, you won't have a chance to say it later." She pointed to the corpse on the 6th level of Qi Lian. Wang Liuwang looked at the corpse at the 6th level of Qi training. He straightened his body. It was better to die than to live. He said, "I said, you promise not to kill me. I know we will be destroyed." Wang Lu spoke like fried beans. What he said was similar to what Yu San said about the destroyed organizational structure, but he knew much more. It turns out that the leader of their purple group is named Zi. She is a beautiful woman and her cultivation level is in the middle stage of foundation building. No wonder Wang Lu wilted immediately when he heard her say that she had a second-level Dzogchen spiritual pet. How could he beat the second-level Dzogchen in the middle stage of foundation building? Even if their palace owner thinks it will work, he has never had a chance to see it and doesn't know yet. There are more than 1,000 monks in their purple group, and they have networked almost all the monks on the continent. Of course, those secluded immortal cultivating families currently do not have the strength to go online. In addition to Zi, who has the highest level of cultivation, there are more than 20 foundation building monks below, and the other members are in the Qi training stage. What Yuan didn't expect was that they also had 2 chief and deputy palace masters, who were not only superb in their skills, but also in martial arts. Even their leader could not defeat them. This time they came to the Great Yan Empire and came to the capital in such a grand manner. Their purpose was to see if there were any monks in the capital and what their level of cultivation was. And they are not the only ones coming this time. As for who else is, he doesn't know. After Wang Lu finished speaking, he looked at Yuan eagerly. Yuan was speechless. Not only was this man mentally ill, he was also extremely afraid of death, for fear that she would kill him. "You just stay here and work for the 3 pillars." It was impossible to let him out, so he stayed to help take care of the space. It was still difficult for a mortal to take care of the 3 pillars. When necessary, Wang Lu can also be used. Yuan returned to the space and showed Wang Lu a few pieces of paper in the wooden box. Wang Lu said that he didn't know what they meant, and only their leader knew. Finally, Yuan asked Wang Lu, where is the home base of their organization? Wang Liuzi didn't know for a long time. He only said that it was in a primitive forest. He didn't know where exactly it was. They are all performing tasks and practicing outside. Since she didn't know anything, she put the box away and didn't bother to care about him. She sent a message to Sanzu and asked Sanzu to take him away. When Wang Lu saw Yuan leaving, he stood up and looked at the space. He was stunned. What kind of place was this? The aura was so strong, and there were food and elixirs everywhere. 3 pillars came over, knocked on the stunned Wang Lu, and pulled him away. Yuan then moved the unwanted things and the corpse out of the space and burned them before returning to Yu Mansion. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 158. Chapter 158. The Missing Queen. She and Xiaolai were the only ones at home in Yu Mansion. After eating the delicious food she cooked, she went back to continue making delicious food. Yuan was bored alone, so she simply entered the space and thought about what to do next. The first thing to do is to find the destroyed lair. If you want to kill them, you don't even know where their lair is. It's just a daydream. If you want to find it, you have to rely on the little snake. She estimates that the little snake is almost consolidated. She will just wait a few days. So she ducked into the space. Owner. With a whoosh sound, the little snake jumped into her arms. Yuan staggered and was almost knocked down by the snake. She picked up the little snake and said, "Can't you be gentler?" The little snake hooked its tail, broke free from the restraint, and wrapped itself around Yuan's wrist. "Master, I didn't control the intensity well. I'm not too happy." Could he be unhappy that he has finally returned to level 3? He won't have to worry about lifespan in the short term. Yuan glanced at it. The aura on it was half as strong as when it was at the second level. It was a bit bigger, and its body must have grown as well. Seeing that it was recovering just in time, she did not clean it up. "That's right, let's go on a mission." "Where, Master, where is my wife?" "What? I haven't seen you for a few days. Why haven't you looked for me? After all, I am also your master. I really forgot about my mother when I got a wife." "No, I forgot about my master." "Oh, let the master see, have your triangular eyes turned white." As she said this, she wanted to mention the little snake again. Upon seeing this, the little snake flew 10 feet away from her with a whoosh sound. "Mom, the little snake has no hands, but it would definitely pat its little heart. Why does the owner always like to hold its tail?" "Okay, I won't tease you anymore." Xiao Jin went to pick up people. The two of us went to find the lair of destruction. "Master, I caught a person who was destruction and said that they had more than 20 monks in the foundation establishment stage and chi training stage. More than 1,000. We have to find them and kill them." The little snake then coiled back her wrist and said, "Okay, the master has some good news for you. Do you want to hear it?" "What good news do you have? By the way, do you have any jade slips or ready-made formation discs about formations?" As soon as Yuan finished speaking, there were many things floating around its body, and she immediately put them away one by one. "Master, do you want to leave this continent?" The little snake suddenly said something. "Leave this continent? Where to go?" Yuan was startled. "Master is stupid, of course he wants to go to the real world of immortal cultivation." "Master, don't you want to continue cultivating? Do you want to keep farming on this continent?" This news was a bit sudden, and Yuan didn't react for a while. She stared at the little snake blankly. To be honest, she had never thought about leaving here. Now she regarded this place as her real home. Yuan took a deep breath and said, "Little snake, why didn't you tell me before?" "Master, don't blame me. I didn't mean not to tell you about that look in your eyes. When I recovered my cultivation, I had a lot more memories. When I was injured and fell here, I fell here from a crack in space. It's a continent. Coincidentally, the two places are connected. That place is in the far west of this continent, but if the master wants to find it, we can go there at any time." The little snake really hopes that Yuan can go. In this continent, it has no mission and hopes to return to its peak, let alone improve its cultivation further. It looked at Yuan worriedly. If she wanted to seek immortality and further her cultivation, she should want to leave. But the little snake also understands that the master came to this world because of space. It also doesn't know what will happen to the master's space if she leaves this world. Will it affect her life? "Oh, I understand, that's not possible now. Let's go look for it after we deal with the matter here, okay?" Yuan didn't know what Xiaoxi was thinking. If she didn't want to leave or couldn't leave, she would definitely let Xiaoxi and Xiaojin go. It is very difficult for the two of them to advance to the level of cultivation on this continent. She is not a selfish person and will not consider their future for her own sake. The little snake was relieved after hearing this. The master agreed. It said, "Okay, there is no rush anyway. Master, let's go find the person first." "Okay, let's go out first." When the master and servant came out of the room, it was already dark outside. It's dark, so it's easy to do things in the dark. Without saying a word, the little snake grew in size and flew out of the capital with Yuan. "Master, I don't think our target is the Great Yan Empire." Yuan nodded. She thought the same thing. The little snakes had traveled all over the Great Yan Empire. It could be said that they knew what was in every corner. Then let's take a look at the neighboring country, the Great Sun Empire. The Great Sun Empire has many mountains, and Wang Lu confessed that it was destroyed in the primeval forest. The other two countries are in the north and the west, while the Japanese Empire is in the south. There are two primeval forests there, one bordering the Great Yan Empire and the other bordering the Great Yin Empire. So Yuan decided to go to the Wei primitive forest on the border with the Great Yan Empire first. "Okay," the little snake responded and flew towards Wei forest. After flying for 4 days and 4 nights, the little snake flew to the edge of Wei forest. "Little snake, fly slower now, she is ready to destroy this destruction when it comes. No matter how many strongholds he has here, he will destroy every one he finds. It's not that easy to eradicate it. But at least let them not come out to cause trouble. Wouldn't it be good for the people to live and work in peace and contentment? Once they come out, they will cause a storm and make the people miserable. The fallen boss wants to unify this continent, so it may not look too ugly." Little snake slowed down, while Yuan slowly checked, not missing anything suspicious. The little snake looked at it while flying. "Master, there are many swamps in this primeval forest. Those people are quite capable. Of course, there are foundation building monks among them. Those two palace masters are stronger than the foundation building monks. Entering the swamp is nothing for them." "Huh? Master, there is a village on the edge of the swamp, and there is the smell of poisonous insects in it," the little snake said and flew over the village. "Isn't this their goo breeding base?" Yuan also looked down. Sure enough, there was a village with a population of dozens of households on the edge of the swamp. The village was circular in shape with an open space in the middle. At this time, the little snake did not fly. It stopped. After a while, it said, "Master, it must be true. Have you sensed it?" "I sensed the aura of the queen and the fake eldest prince." "Oh, it's still hard to find anywhere, and it takes no effort to get there." She had a hard time looking for these two people. She didn't expect that they were hiding here and raising goo insects here. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 159. Chapter 159 Settlement of Accounts. The poisonous insects in the palace were indeed hers. It just so happened that the old and new accounts were settled together. "Little snake, let's wait until dark before diving down." "It's okay, master. How about I put you down and go take a look first?" The little snake almost drooled when he smelled the breath of the poisonous insect. "Foodie," Yuan slapped it on the body. The little snake shrank its head and landed on the edge of the forest, putting Yuan down. The situation inside was unknown now, so it didn't dare to take her in rashly, not to mention it was a swamp. Unless the cultivation reaches the foundation building stage. "Master, don't wander around, it's very dangerous here," the little snake warned Yuan again and again as she left. Yuan's mouth twitched. When did the little snake become so verbose? It seems like she is a naive little brat. The little snake flew away in her white eyes. Yuan was not idle either. She entered the space and looked at what the little snake had given her previously. This is the formation disc. She held a palm-sized disc in her hand that was neither gold nor wood. It was carved with lines that she couldn't understand, and there was a groove in the middle. She knew that was the place where the spiritual stones were placed. This array disc could be activated as long as the spiritual stones were installed, which was very convenient. Convenience is convenient, but it also involves burning spiritual stones. Wherever there are spiritual stones to burn in this world, there will be no shortage of firewood. Yuan thought about it and put the formation disc into the space. She wanted to set up a formation on Jiawei Mountain. The purpose was not to let others compete with her and cause trouble for her. This person who was destroyed had spiritual stones in his body during the Qi training stage, and he must have had them in the foundation building stage as well. Yuan smiled widely, saying she could do robbing and so on. Finally at night, Yuan got out of the space and waited for the little snake. But she waited and waited for the little snake, but it didn't arrive. Yuan became anxious. Has the greedy snake been caught? Just when she was about to go in to look for it, she heard two whoosh sounds and the little snake flew in front of her. Master, I'm late. Let's go. I'll tell you on the way. The little snake was afraid of being beaten, so he crackled when he saw her. Yuan didn't say a word. She jumped on the back of the little snake, and the little snake flew into the sky. Master, there are 14 people there, and they all raise voodoos there. However, I ate all those voodoos. Hee, they tasted pretty good. I poisoned all those people and fainted. Master, am I aware of the harm? No wonder this guy is so late and his belly is still round. There are quite a lot of goo worms in this nest. Li Hao, be careful in the future. There are no monks here. If those 20 or so foundation establishment monks besiege you, let's see what you do. I understand, Master. The little snake knows that she has a sharp tongue and a soft heart. While the master and servant were talking, they had already reached the sky above the village. The little snake slowly descended into the middle courtyard, and she jumped off the little snake's back. Master, follow me. Yuan nodded and followed it to an open wooden house. They entered. As soon as he entered, an unpleasant smell came, and in his mind's eye, the queen was lying on the bed as if she was asleep. Yuan went in, raised her hand, and a stream of spiritual power entered her body. A voice came from the queen's mouth. She opened her eyes, still at a loss. Phew, Yuan lit up the lamp in the room again. Ant Queen, you are well. Ah, it's you. Why are you here? The queen saw clearly that it was Yuan. She jumped out of bed like a spring and quickly stood opposite Yuan, her eyes still looking out into the darkness. Yuan looked at her with a half smile but said, "It's my turn to ask you this." The queen's aunt left without a word back then. You don't know how hard it was for my uncle to find you. The queen said the word I, but did not say any more. You want to say that you are not my queen's aunt, Yuan continued. I just know. I also know that you killed my real aunt, and my cousin was almost killed by you. You were sent to perform a mission, but it was a pity that I ruined the good thing. And, your son, your organization can detoxify him, but why not detoxify him? You have to ask your leader about this, Yuan sighed sadly. Are you telling the truth? She opened her eyes wide and looked at Yuan in disbelief. Yuan shrugged, spread their arms, and said, why did I lie to you? You are not worthy of my lie, and your goo worms are of no use to me. My purpose is very simple. Back then, your goo worms let me, my mother, my uncle, and his family have lived in pain for more than 10 years. I am just seeking justice for them. I just want you to know the truth and let you and your son live in pain. Originally, she wanted to kill this hateful woman, but she suddenly changed her mind. It would be better to let her live in pain than to die happily. Impossible, how is it possible? she covered her face with her hands and cried out in pain. She just sat slumped on the ground, crying sadly, as if she had cried out all the grievances she had suffered over the years. Yuan curled her lips and cried. You know the pain and grievance. She just listened to her crying indifferently. Sigh, how relieved it would be for me to see this scene. But it's okay to take it back and let them vent their anger. Pa, a boy of 18 or 19 years old, as skinny as a stick, with a face that looked like Bao Gong's face, was thrown to the ground by the snake. Ah, my child, son, wake up. When the woman saw it was her son, she rushed over and hugged the boy, crying loudly. I beg you, please save my son. As long as you can save him, you can let me die. The woman let go of her son, hugged Yuan, and kept kowtowing to her. Yuan became angry. She kicked the woman away and cursed, you, do you think I am a holy mother to save your son? Why did you manage to bewitch my cousin back then? He is not a child. Tell me, where is my aunt? Is she really dead? Yuan stepped forward and grabbed his throat and asked. Ahem, cough, let go, I'll tell you if you promise to save my son. She wanted to pry Yuan's hand away with both hands, but how could her strength be the monk's match? Bang, Yuan hit her lower abdomen with his left fist. At this time, he was still telling her terms. Since he didn't tell her, let's forget it. This is good. Grandma, uncle, and cousin, they are living a comfortable life now. Don't make trouble when they go back. The little snake takes action. After hearing this, the little snake immediately bit open some skin on the boy, put the venom in, and then injected it into the woman in the same way. Ah, you will not die. Well, my son. The woman was unable to resist. She could only curse continuously as she watched the snake being poisoned. Pa, Yuan let her go and slapped her with her backhand. I feel bad, that's right. It's called treating others the same way they are treated. Do you understand? Just bear with it. Yuan patted her face and kicked her again. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 160. Chapter 160. Moving People. The woman's eyes were as red as lanterns. She looked at Yuan with hatred and covered her cheek with one hand, not daring to curse any more. Because she cursed again, Yuan kicked her son. Haha, it turns out that beating someone like this makes Yuan feel happy. After Yuan vented her anger, she was no longer in the mood to spend time with her. She struck each of the two people with a knife, chopped them unconscious, and threw them into the space. Taking it back will also make Bai Zi and Feng Shi feel embarrassed. She is not the virgin, she let the woman go so easily. It is her style to seek revenge and hate. It will not let their mother-in-law hear. In case the destroyed people use it, it will be a greater disaster for her and the Dian Empire. So it's safest to throw it into space. After they ask for what they want, just kill them with one breath. Let's go, little snake. The little snake nodded, and it flew up. When it stopped on top of the village, Yuan threw a few fireballs towards the village. Boom, the fireball ignites as soon as it sticks to the house. The little snake immediately shrouded the entire village in its barrier, making it impossible for people to see the place being burned. Yuan looked at the village in the fire below, which gradually disappeared into nothing amidst the crackling sounds. When there was only black ash on the ground, she cast a small cloud and rain spell in the sky, immediately erasing her traces here. Go! The little snake soared into the sky and flew deeper into the forest. Flying over the swamp and flying over a canyon. Master, down below should be their weapon training base. The little snake stopped and lowered its consciousness. Oh, it seems we have found the right place. Let's see if there are any monks. At such a high distance, she could only let the little snake check. The little snake lowered a little, and stopped when its spiritual consciousness could detect it. After a while, the little snake withdrew its consciousness and said, Master, There are many soldiers here, at least 50,000 soldiers. There are also 2 foundation building monks stationed there, and there are also 20 monks in the Qi training period. There are so many. Yuan thought about being cared for by monks, but she didn't want to have so many. If she wanted to kill these people quietly, she and Little Snake couldn't do it. She had an idea. She had to go back to recruit reinforcements. It was not that there were no monks at home. It would be feasible to ask Mujukan and her mother to come to help. She immediately sent a message to the Little Snake and asked it to go back. "Master, what are you going back for? Let's go back and rescue them. It's definitely not possible for the 2 of us to kill so many people silently. Even if Little Snake deals with those 2 monks in the foundation building stage, can she deal with 20 Qi training stages? And what about those 50,000 soldiers? Do you really think they are vegetarians?" So she prepared to bring Yu Yi and the more than 40 children. Little Snake thought about it. If he didn't do it quietly, he would attract other monks, and they wouldn't be able to pay. Can only nibble away at them a little bit. Thinking of this, it disappeared into the horizon with a whoosh sound. After another 4 days and 4 nights, the master and the servant arrived in front of the cave on Jiaowei Mountain. By this time, the place had changed a lot. The outside of the cave had become a flat valley, and many wooden houses had been built outside the entrance of the cave. It's in full swing right now. Xiao Jin knew they were back, and he immediately flew up. "The master is back, and as you said, everyone has come to pick him up. That's good. Go home and fetch my mother and Mujukan." She and the Little Snake flew around day and night. The Little Snake could hold on, but she couldn't. "Okay, master." Xiao Jin saw that she was really tired and immediately flew to the capital. The Little Snake flew to the ground and put her down. "Master, are you back?" When Shitu and the other 3 saw her, they all stepped forward to salute and say hello. "Well, this is well built, your cultivation is also solid, you are not lazy, the master is very happy." "Master, why are you so tired? What's wrong with you?" Xiner noticed that her expression was different. "Master, everything is fine. He just hasn't slept for several days and nights. Go and prepare a room for me. I want to sleep." "Master, yours has been prepared. Xiner will take you there right now." Xiner stepped forward to help her and walked towards a wooden house. Entering the wooden house, Xiner consciously exited, while Yuan closed the door and window, slipped into the space and fell asleep. When she came out of the wooden house, the yard outside was full of people. "How is Xiao Ser? Is there nothing wrong? Did you ask Xiao Jin to pick us up because we were here?" Feng asked Yuan with a happy face. "She fell in love with her as soon as she came here." Mujukan sat on the chair without saying a word. He didn't think that Yuan would call him in such a place. There must be something going on, or it was about the 2 monks they had been searching for without success. "Mom, do you like it here?" Of course Yuan felt that Feng loved it here. "I like it, of course I like it, but why didn't you ask your uncle to come too? Why did Xiao Seer call us for something?" As soon as she thought about it, Feng immediately thought that Xiao Ser had never left him behind when something good happened, so there must be something going on. Yuan nodded. She led Feng to sit down, and nodded to Mujukan as a greeting. "Is such that?" She told what she had discovered, focusing on the army in the primeval forest. Everyone present was surprised after hearing this. "What do you mean, Xia? Let us take care of their nest." Yuan nodded and said, "What do you think? With our strength here, it shouldn't be difficult." She looked at Mujukan. Mujukan frowned. He did not answer her immediately. He was thinking about how to destroy the 50,000 strong army. He is an expert in marching, fighting, and arranging troops. But the opponent has 50,000 people, not 5,000. It would be very difficult for them to win with such little people here, not to mention that the opponent also has monks. Yuan saw that he didn't speak, so she didn't ask any more questions. Instead, it was Feng who said, Xiao Sier, how are we going to take down these 50,000 troops in one fell swoop? How about we send troops to your uncle? That's inappropriate. Mujukin spoke this time. He shook his head and said, our army was useless in the past. If we can't defeat others, we will die if we go there. Those 50,000 troops may have been in the forest every day since they were children. Practicing martial arts and fighting, there will even be people who teach them how to fight, capture, and fight, and they are not proficient in all kinds of martial arts, but our army is definitely no match for them, only people like Yu Yi and others who have undergone special training. Opponent. Miss Yu, do you think I'm right? Yuan nodded, and Feng Shi understood. Yuan looked at Mujukin and asked, how many people are there at your place? She has a remaining of 191 people plus the 44 children, which makes her 135 people. Let alone 10 against 135, 1 against 5 is perfectly fine. But it's still far from enough to deal with 50,000 people. Since Mujukin has thought about the problem so thoroughly, he must have people similar to Yu Yi and the others. End of this chapter.